Hi, everyone. Welcome to another live session. As always, so excited to be back and having the opportunity, as always, to interact with the community. Always a great experience. And so, as people are hopping on today, we are going to just dive in and address the elephant in the room. And it's something that we're going to extensively cover today. This job market is getting super, super funky, and I'm just here to answer any questions. And of course, we're probably going to see some data coming in from the community to tell us, hey, like, what's going on? What have you heard from your internal sources? And this doesn't just have to be about Google. We've noticed that Amazon's really cutting back. There's been a Microsoft hiring freeze, Netflix. It's getting a little crazy out there. And so, how do we navigate all this ambiguity and all these unknowns will be a big part of our discussion today. So I think what I want to do is let me go ahead and prompt on a couple of high level items really quickly. I'm going to provide 2 or 3 data points that I've heard this week, specifically coming out of Google, and then we'll dive into the questions. As always, questions, comments, feedback. We'll take everything. Hellos, where you're viewing this from. So if you've never been on one of my lives before, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. We offer interview coaching, which is slowed down a little bit, negotiation coaching, which is also slowed down. Today, if you want to get the mastery course and take advantage of the offer we have today, if you type in the code WIN, WIN, that's the discount code. You'll get $100 off our interview mastery course until 9:59 Pacific time today. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I do new videos every other Tuesday, and I go live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. If I'm ever not going to go live, I'll let the community know in the community tab on YouTube that I'm skipping a week. I know I have a week, for example, coming up in September that I'm going to need to skip. But most of the time, I'll show up every week. Yesterday's video, I really focused in on the TVC to FTE journey at Google just because I'd received so many comments over the last month trying to figure that out. Obviously, with the freezes going on, we'll see how that plays out. So what's the data that's come in this week? The data that I've seen is that recruiting decisions in regards to hiring freezes, specifically at Google, were supposed to be shared with recruiters today so that they could externally message, or yesterday so they could externally message today. A lot of the feedback is that they haven't really figured it out yet. And this is not surprising. I think this is definitely what I expected and what a lot of people expected. So probably at least a couple more weeks at least. And they're still going through the exercise. We've seen them definitely deprioritizing lower level positions, specifically L3s. Some L3s have just been told, look, not for the rest of this year or not soon. So L3s, it's going to most impact L3 SWEs because that's simply just the role they hire the most for, right? So that will have the largest impact in regards to hiring. We're going to have to see how that plays out for L4s, L5s, L6, and L7s. I think we'll be a little bit safer going up into the director level. There's so much to unpack here, but I've heard they're still going through the exercise. They still haven't figured it out. And I have heard a little bit of a messaging that a couple of people for high priority roles are rolling through and starting to get hired as of today. I don't have any evidence of that on my side with my negotiation clients. And I think a few of those are pretty high priority roles, so I haven't seen that yet. So let's come in. Let's chat about it. Let's discuss it. Happy to take any questions. I know a lot of it is going to be about trying to just manage expectations, keep all of us patient. And, I'm feeling the pain just like everybody else out there. I want you to know that. I mean, obviously my business has been extremely impacted by what's happening, and I'm trying to view it as a positive and an opportunity to build my business in other ways during this downtime. But we're all feeling a little bit of the stress and anxiety of this. So I'm with you. So let's dive in. We'll get to all the questions. I'll do prompts at the half hour to just pitch my services really quickly. And then, of course, happy to answer any questions. We'll get to all the questions. No need to double up. I'll get through all of them in order. Thank you so much. Okay. One of my friends at Google Austin location would be giving me a reference. Does that mean I can only apply for jobs in the Austin location with that referral? Or would that referral be considered for all Google locations as well? And please share how these internal referrals work. Yeah, that definitely does not have to just be Austin. It can be whatever your preferred location is. Referrers just get an uptick, right? It increases the likelihood that your profile will be viewed. That's really the only thing they can guarantee. Now, you may want to be thinking, and this entire audience maybe want to be thinking about the referrals and the timing of these referrals. Is now the right time to get referred? Maybe you should just hold off for a couple of weeks. Let's see if we can get some additional data, because as things open up, maybe recruiters will be more active. Now, I think they should be most active now as things have slowed down. It's an opportunity for them to get organized and get back to people. And people are still interviewing, by the way. It's the late stages. It's hiring committee. It's offer review. It's actually extending and accepting offers. That's really freezing. The interviews are still happening. Those have slowed down too, but they're definitely still interviewing. Dear Jeff, I celebrated your anniversary at Amazon. Awesome. Thanks to you. And to cut to the chase, I have an opportunity at Apple and an interview with Apple as an EPM 4 or 5. How can I prepare for an EPM as a non-tech PgM? Well, Apple is going to have some similarities to a Google, where they're going to ask a mix of behavioral and open-ended questions. What I've seen from these roles is it can be a little bit of a wild card, but remember, we're not trying to change and cannot change our background. So I really want you to focus in on your current skills, focus in on those great examples, and that's going to be your best way to excel. Now, the one piece of advice I have for all the people I speak to from Amazon employees tend to feel as though they're a little better on the behavioral side than they are. And it's just because you did so much prep to get in on the behavioral side, sometimes things are forgotten. So I would say, just don't back off of prepping on the behavioral side as well. For any company interview, if the interview asks you if you have experience in a certain software / application such as SQL, etc., but you have little to no experience, should you say no? Absolutely. Now, if they say, what's your SQL experience? You could say, I haven't really worked with SQL that much, but I'm happy to provide an example of a time where I learned another application or software really quickly, if you like. We always want to be 100% honest. If we're not, you might get an interviewer who says, oh, that's interesting. I didn't see it on your resume. Tell me more about how you would do SQL for X. And then all of a sudden you're in trouble. The goal in the interviews is to provide a positive landscape and be 100% honest. If we're not, we're going to get challenged on something that we made up, and then we're not going to be able to backtrack. And I haven't had this a lot, but I've had this with a couple of clients where they would give me an example and I would say, I don't understand that example. Can you tell me more? Like it didn't sound like a real example. And those few times that I've called out clients for that was the case. It didn't sound real and it wasn't real. So just make sure you're always being honest. You don't have to share every single detail, but if you're asked about a certain technology, just be very upfront whether you know that tech or not. Videos are really informative. You're a UX writer and you've been interested in joining Google full-time for years. You got the chance to work on a contract there for 7 months. Okay, this was last year. You just had a first round portfolio review that I thought went well, but the reviewer's recommendation was not to move forward and wait 12 months before reapplying. Is that typical for UX? So I asked the recruiter if I could re-interview without waiting a year. Amazingly, the recruiter got me another chance on 8/8. Interviewer will be different. Is this typical? Did I only get this chance because of the freeze? What are the odds of passing the review at the second time? Okay. First round interviewer said your presentation was comprehensive, but I know I should have shown more examples. If your interviewer goes well, could I ask the interviewer at the end of my presentation whether they're confident in recommending? Okay. This is uncommon. Yeah, so I don't know what happened, and I don't know the reasoning why you're getting another chance. It's not because of the hiring freeze. It's probably because it was close enough, or maybe that interviewer is just really tough. I can't really say why. Now that you know what to do better, focus in on that. I don't like the question of whether they're confident in recommending me moving forward if it's not for a sales role. And I had this exact conversation with a client last week. They really wanted to ask this question. Here's the challenge. That can make your interviewer very uncomfortable. Some people do not like being put in that position and do not want to answer that question. Why is that so important? It's usually the last thing you discuss. So if you make them feel uncomfortable and they leave the interview and they're giving you in the moment, like the spot score of whether they want to hire you or not, it's not going to work out well, right? So this question can make people uncomfortable. If it's a sales role, yes, go in for the close. What are the next steps to move forward? How can we get this started, etc.? Because salespeople are supposed to be closers, but for UX, no, you do not need to close, but take all of what you experienced in the last interview and apply it this time around, okay? Good luck. As a recruiter, and here's what she said, thank you for reaching out. Currently, we're reprioritizing where we're hiring for the remainder of the year. So you may experience some delays in our hiring process. I want to give you an early heads up that it might take a bit longer than usual to hear next steps following your interviews. Please rest assured that this is not a reflection of your candidacy, and I'll keep you updated every step along the way. We appreciate your patience and continued interest in Google. That is a very, very scripted message that I imagine a number of candidates are getting. I haven't seen that exact scripting, but I'm pretty sure that other people are going to get this message. Okay, so just hang in there. Sometimes we just need to be a little bit proactive. So what does that mean? Well, touch base with your recruiter once a month. Just say, hey, it's Kyle. I'm out there. Just wanted you to remember me. Just touching base, right? Something really simple. Or of course, the better step is you can always ask them their preferred cadence for you reaching back out to them. We got echo. Okay. Last week I was interviewing for L7, L8. Is it all director and above? I've already interviewed with the HM and VPs. Thanks again. So sometimes they'll interview you for L7, L8. L7 is not a director and L8 is obviously a director. And sometimes they're coming in with this hybrid model. This is one of my least favorites. I don't like the idea or concept of L7 versus L8 because there is a big leap from 7 to 8. So I feel like we should just be interviewing at an 8 with the opportunity to move down to a 7, not at a 7 or 8, because it's a little bit confusing there. But yes, as an L7 or L8, I would expect that you would only interview with directors and VPs to give you the opportunity to be hired as an L8. So good luck. Keep us posted. Sorry, Kyle. So no, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be moving to the next round someday. Unfortunately, I can't guarantee that. Applied for a PE role and did not make it past the technical interview. It's been 6 months and you've taken classes to better prepare. How should I approach asking the recruiter for another interview? Just ask. I would reach back out and say, hey, I know there's some things going on in the economy in the current market, but I've been really working on my skill set by doing A, B, and C. I'd be interested in re-exploring this role and just see if they get back to you. Cleared the HC round for L4, Cloud AI Engineer role in India, then stuck with the hiring freeze. What are my chances of getting an offer after reprioritization? Recruiter not saying a date on the freeze. Nope, no dates. We do not have anything confirmed. Here's what I can tell you. AI is it's a critical role globally, and I think that gives you a better chance. L4 is a fuzzy area in terms of reprioritization and how they're going to prioritize lower levels, which would be L3 and L4. Look, to me, AI is always going to bump up in the priority because it's a very, very unique skill set that's in very high demand globally. So I would think that would give you better chances, but unfortunately, I can't say for sure. Keep us posted. Recruiter confirmed that my offer hold goes joining next month. Recruiter confirmed that your offer holds and you're joining next month. Was able to bump up the base and stocks by 25% using your free resources and being generous and kind. Awesome. Thanks a lot for your help, by the way. It's an L5 TPM Bangalore location. You're a rock star. All right, amazing. So I may have you come in and tell us more. Did your offer get confirmed and pushed through today? Please let us know, because that would be really, really good data for the audience. Thanks. Finish your onsite for YouTube 2 weeks ago for an analyst role. Sent your recruiter sent your hiring committee package the day the freeze was announced. Okay. And I checked yesterday for an update, and he says he hasn't heard anything yet and will come share when he has one. Do you know what I should do other than follow up? No, just maybe like once a week check-ins at this point are going to be pretty good. I'm in the process of finalizing Amazon L6 SDE offer. Google L5 recruiter reached out saying feedback is in and I should hear back next week as hiring freeze ends and told me to delay Amazon. Any advice? I think it's going to probably be hard to delay Amazon as long as you're going to need to. So this has been my recommendation. Remember, not everybody's going to like this recommendation. I recommend accepting Amazon, pushing out the start date as far as they'll allow it, and then seeing what happens with Google, so that in a worst case scenario, if you had to rescind, that you weren't starting at Amazon, because it's a lot harder once they get you started to rescind. That's going to make the pain a lot tougher for them than you rescinding before you start. So my recommendation, I still think things are going to move slow and nobody can guarantee a timeline. And this is just, they should hear back next week. Is not a guarantee. Okay. Any tips for being successful in the first 6 months at Google? Absolutely. This actually correlates quite a bit to the video I did yesterday, TVC to FTE. The ability to build great internal relationships and build a strong brand in the first 3 months is absolutely critical to your success at any organization. So how do you do that? You come in with extreme positivity. You default to listening as opposed to talking. You ask great questions. And you just network and build relationships with people in like roles, different roles, anybody you interact with, virtual lunches, in-person lunches. Really build your network, because building that brand is really critical. It's something that I did at Google and it worked really well for me. So just my recommendation. I do have a branding course that I'm trying to put out early next year that will coach and teach people on how to brand themselves when they're new to an organization. There's very, very little content on that subject area. When is the right time to engage with you? An offer negotiation? Is it after the recruiter makes the first offer? It's before. Okay, so once you've team matched, you've hit HC and you've been approved, you know your level, no numbers, okay? No numbers, and then engage with me so we can set that anchor. That's the best time, but I prefer to go first. It hasn't really changed the offers that my clients have gotten. If they go first or we go first, they're going to anchor, we're going to anchor. So it's not a big deal, but I prefer to get in front of it if at all possible. I'm currently in the team matching phase for Google. Is it possible that they just don't hire me to the freeze, or would it just take longer? Actually, both are possible. It's possible that you don't get hired because of the freeze. It's also possible that you don't find a team match. Now, of course, I want to think positively, put out those positive vibes, and that's what I want you to do too. But either there's potential for either that the freeze impacts it or that you just don't find a team that happened. Both could potentially happen. A data point on my side, you're interviewing for an L7 CE and I'm a priority hire, but they told me they're still not sure what would happen. Okay, thank you so much for that data point. I agree. I look at L7 CEs as critical hires. GCP is a revenue driving area of the business, and CE roles will have a sales component. So I can't imagine that they would not move forward with these roles, but I don't know the answers. And so thank you so much for that data point. Really, really helpful. Just wanted to share that the scheduler reached out and I'm still going to have virtual on-site interviews in a week. This is for an L5 PgM for GCP. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, thank you so much. This is kind of the interesting thing. They're still moving forward with a bunch of interviews. So I don't not really sure what's happening. And hopefully the interviews that they're conducting, they think that those are higher priority roles. But again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay. But thank you. Do you feel like this will overall affect the ABP role, considering the execs will always need ABPs, or do you think they will increase current workload for ABPs to decrease headcount? Probably a little bit of both. ABPs are probably going to have to take on a little bit more. My best guess is that people throughout Google are probably going to have to take on a little bit more work, just guessing, but that they'll still hire, because you're right, ABPs will always be needed. Now, it'll also be interesting to see what kind of attrition rate happens for ABPs. So if somebody was considering leaving and they were at Google and they were thinking about going to Microsoft, for example, well, do they hold on to their job longer because of everything that's going on in the economy? So again, it'll just be interesting to see. Good question. Interview with Amazon for business analyst role, L5 this Friday. Yeah, I have heard that Amazon is not only slowing down, but cutting back, but I think they'll still continue to hire. They're just too big. And I think the one data point that we're not talking about enough is just because of everything that's happened in our world over the last 2.5 years or so since COVID hit, the Great Resignation and all these other things and all the flexibility to earn income in different ways today, the attrition rates are probably still going to be a little bit higher than normal. So all these companies can't just not hire because there's attrition. So it's just something to keep in mind. My friend got an offer for a software engineer L3. He's starting at September early. Is there a chance his offer can get rescinded? We haven't seen that. We haven't seen offers getting rescinded, and that's like really bad for the brand, right? And so that's why I think like a company like these big tech companies probably won't do it. You saw so much of the negative backlash when like Coinbase like rescinded all those offers and people had quit their jobs and relocated and done all this stuff. So I think the press would be so bad if they started rescinding offers that I don't believe it's going to happen. I can't say for sure. There has been hinting even at Google that they would be doing layoffs. That was an article yesterday that I read, but we don't know. But I would say it's a low likelihood just from a branding perspective. I got through the first round internal for AppMod AM role. Feedback was positive, but recruiters said they will have to get back in 2 weeks after reprioritizing. Okay. What are the chances of this role going through? I think AppMod's a little higher again. I'm going to put some prioritization on GCP and ads because those are the two biggest revenue generators, but obviously I can't say for sure. Do you answer the questions before you're live? I asked a few in an hour and I should rewrite them. I don't answer questions before the lives. I didn't see any of your questions coming through. I just always try to answer all the questions in order. So if they didn't show up before, so if you just want to re-ask them, that would be great. Do you think CE L4 will be prioritized after the hiring freeze? I believe that. Are they going to try and go leaner with CEs in these markets? I don't think so. I mean, I think that they would still prioritize GCP, so I feel pretty good about it, but we'll obviously have to wait and see. Just finished up your final round of interviews. Lots of CEs, L5, L6. You received positive feedback. When is it appropriate time to follow up with my recruiter? Also, in a recent live, you recommended an anchor of 420-ish for L5 and 460 for L6 Dallas. Would you recommend those high anchors given the climate? Okay, so for CE L5 Dallas, I like 420-ish. Now remember, 420 is too even. 419, 417, 421.5. Like we got to come in with something more unique. If you go to the free resources page on practiceinterviews.com, you can use that offer template. Obviously, I'm here with those services if you need me. For an L6, it wouldn't be 460. It would be higher. I'd be going into the very, very high fours for an L6, maybe into the low fives, but definitely 487.2 or something like that, like really not 460 for an L6. I'd be going in the high fours, maybe even into the fives, even for Dallas. Okay. If 3 of 5 on-site interviewers were from the ad sector, does that mean ad-related team was interested in my application for a data scientist? Wow. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that would seem like a high number for a data scientist. So it's kind of interesting because I would think you would come in with a very specific role if they were going to put that many people from the ad space. So if you want to tell us more, tell us more. Good morning. You were waiting on headcount approval from a non-FANG that interviewed with back in March. Okay. After positive feedback from interviews, I was told headcount was likely open by the end of Q3. You were in touch with your recruiter on a monthly basis, but her position was affected by the recent layoffs. What's your suggestion on my path forward, reaching out to the sourcer or getting in touch with the manager, director of the hiring team? Both. Yeah. I mean, I think you could start with the sourcer, but you can also go to the hiring manager or director. One of the actions and steps I'd like to see from these organizations is somewhat of like a 3-month hold on these emails. So if it was like jane@google.com or janes@google.com, whatever it is, janesmith@google.com, they should have a forwarding person on that email address for 2 or 3 months, just so you have a new point of contact. I just think that when somebody drops off, it's really not fair to candidates. But you could follow up with both. Start with the sourcer and then go to the hiring manager or director. Wanted to inform you that you started on G at 7-Eleven as a remote TPM. Your content played a critical role. You're amazing and the best. Yeah, good luck, everybody. Thank you so much, Boris. Obviously, based on the current landscape, we love hearing positive stories, and being able to work as a TPM remote is just awesome. And I'm glad you got in before the freeze. Thank you so much for the positive feedback. Any advice on getting your resume noticed by recruiters for a summer UX research intern role? Should you reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn to introduce yourself? You can reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn, but I wish that the audience could see what my LinkedIn looks like today, but especially when I was a Google recruiter, I mean, the amount of messages these recruiters get, it can be so overwhelming. It's hard to describe. I mean, we're talking about sometimes hundreds of messages in 1 week. That's how often they're getting hit up. So if you are going to do it, try and identify university recruiters or people who are recruiting for that specific kind of role if they've introduced that, and then you can reach out to them. In regards to the resume, practiceinterviews.com, free resources, use that resume template. Here's the deal. People are complicating their resumes. Your audience is going to spend 3 to 5 seconds. Make it as easy for them to read as possible. It's not about us. It's about thinking about our audience and how they read resumes. I hope that helps. Okay. What should be a high anchor salary range for security TPM Seattle GCP L6? Tips for passing T-Match. I have a few calls set up, not sure what HR managers are looking for. So, TPMs are getting paid really well these days. So, I mean, I'm definitely for an L6 TPM in Seattle, anchoring well into the 5s. That's my recommendation. I think as an L6, you could end up somewhere in the mid to high 4s maybe. So I'm definitely anchoring well into the 5s. In regards to passing the T-Match, there's only 3 things you need to do. I would stand. I stand for all these lives. It gives me more energy, gives me more pitch, tone in my voice, and just overall energetically, it's going to show up better. You have to have a great answer for tell me about yourself and why Google. Like those answers, you have to crush those answers. They have to be rehearsed and scripted, and you have to work on them time and time again. Then you just have to have great questions for them. And let's not ask hiring managers really challenging questions. Let's ask them questions about themselves. What do you love about the role, the company, etc.? The questions you ask typically come at the end. And that's what they're going to remember. If you have more probing questions, have them want to move forward with you and then ask for a follow-up call to ask a few more questions. Get them excited about you. Not everybody likes that guidance, but it works. Okay. All right, we're at the 30s. I'm 20 minutes behind, so it's not too bad. That's pretty common. My name is Jeff H. Stipe. The platform is practiceinterviews.com. We do interview coaching. We do negotiation coaching. Special offer today, 100 off the course. If you type in WIN, W-I-N, as the coupon code, you get $100 off our interview mastery course until 11:59 Pacific time today. Don't want you to miss that one. Thank you. I have 16 years of experience and done with 3 coding, 2 system design, 1 googliness interviews, awaiting consolidated feedback. What level can I expect app engineering role? I think that sounds like if it's 16 years of relevant experience, a 6. It could drop down to a 5. If you're a killer, it could go up to 7, but it sounds like a 6. Hey, Jeff, I just passed HC a couple weeks ago, but can't team match due to the pause. Is it likely that there will be L3 team matching this year? I don't know, but I do think that there'll be a longer pause on L3, so maybe that continues through the rest of Q3. So I think there's a higher likelihood that you'll have a pause on that for a longer period of time. Hi, Jeff. A friend had 3 interviews for a recruiter role in Africa, and the Google recruiter has been giving weekly updates and keeping in contact. Would this be a good sign? It's a sign that they have a good recruiter. Yeah, I can't say if they'll move forward, but it's definitely a good recruiter. Jeff, can you explain total comp in Google? Doesn't it consist of 3 things: base, sign-on, and stocks? However, I'm blind. I see that people say their offer consisted of base, sign-on, stocks, and bonus. Yeah, sign-on is a part of the offer sometimes. It really depends. Some roles are more sign-on heavy than others. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I would say it's not a big deal. You're just trying to drive that total comp year 1 number up as much as possible in whatever facet. More base, more equity with a sign-on. When I work with my clients, I'm not worried about the breakdown of getting X in X space and Y in Y space. Like, we're just trying to get and maximize it. And then if we can add in a sign-on or bolster the sign-on in the process, that's great. But yeah, absolutely. Are sign-ons a part of the process? Sometimes. Without internship, is it possible to get Google as freshers? Yeah, and usually freshers are getting hired as interns, typically. Interns or apprenticeships. Sometimes there's an associate role maybe as well. But bonus... Okay, sorry. And then we're going back to this. But bonus is variable in my book and should not be in total comp. So if the recruiter tries to sell me on the year-end bonus, can I say bonus should not be part of total comp? Absolutely not. Okay, so Google bonuses are guaranteed. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. What does that mean? Let's say, I think we were talking L6. So for an L6, you have a 20% target bonus. If you meet expectations or get any rating above meeting expectations, you will get a minimum of 20%. So what does that mean? It means that 95% of the company at an L6 will get 20% or more. It's only 5% that would not get that, and they'd be in the needs improvement category. That's a very uncommon category to be in. Also at the high end, superb, very uncommon as well. That's 5%. But it is guaranteed. When 95% of the company achieves that bonus or greater, you can pretty much call that a guarantee. So that argument would not hold water. Okay. One more. If I'm at the T-match phase, does that mean you've passed your TPM interviews? It means that your TPM feedback is strong enough to take you to the T-match phase. Okay to keep my current part-time job while working a 6-month contract gig in Google. Don't want to quit my current job as a contract is only 6 months. No conflict of interest. Okay. And nothing Google hiring agreement prevents me from having a second job. I can do my second job after hours and weekends, so it won't affect my Google contract. Yeah, I would say go for it. And my biggest recommendation is don't tell them. If it doesn't impact it, it's a conflict of interest, don't say anything. Just take on and keep that second job. Now, watch that video from yesterday. You can make huge inroads and have a huge impact to get yourself a great opportunity to get converted. So just remember, that opportunity is always on the table, but you have to own it and drive it. I attended technical strategy lead L6 cloud specific team after 2 months of processing by completing all interviews, including HM discussion. Okay. You were told that it's offered to an internal candidate. You were advised to check other roles and stay in touch. She forwarded my profile over to the other recruiter for CE hiring, but no message or contacts, details, or follow up with that recruiter. Any advice? Yep. You just got to keep following up. You got to keep poking. Just the biggest thing to remember is at this stage, you have to be gracious and kind and just follow up with lots of gratitude. It may take a while for them to get back to you. What's your advice for reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn? How do I ensure that they'll reply to me? My best piece of advice for reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn is to not do it. The likelihood that recruiters are going to respond to you on LinkedIn is very, very low. And the strategy of reaching out to a recruiter and asking them for something, it just doesn't work. Okay. It doesn't work because they get hit up so many times every day with people asking them for something. If you want to reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn, figure out what specific area they're recruiting for, find a cool article or video and just share it with them. Just say, hey, I came across this cool video or article that might help you in your job. Just wanted to share. If you use the give first model, that's the only way that you're maybe going to get a response. Do not ask for anything. This is the 99% game on LinkedIn. People reach out and they ask and they ask and they ask. And so the people who are likely receiving all these asking messages, they're likely getting so many asks that there's just no way they could handle them. So be different. You'll really stand out. When the messages are different, it feels different. So let's talk about this for a second. The vast majority of people who reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I am very fortunate to not be in that 99% category. I'm more in the 90%, 10% of people are reaching out and asking to learn more about my services or saying thank you and showing tremendous gratitude. But there is still the 90%. And the most common message is they tell me all about the role and they say, guide me. And I just don't know how to do that, right? I don't know how to guide them. Am I supposed to call them? Am I supposed to email them? Am I supposed to spend hours of time with them, guiding them? And I'll get that message multiple times a day. And then I get a lot of the hi Jeffs, which is fine. I don't mind interacting with people in that way, but I just simply can't respond to all the people who just say hi to me. So it's just to give a little bit of insight on what it feels like to be on the other side. And then I can tell you the most common message I received as a Google recruiter for 5 years online was, Jeff, get me an internship, or hire me for an internship. And it was so clear from my profile that I did not hire interns. And so it just takes a little bit of work, a little bit of effort. And I know it can feel overwhelming, but the giving first model, it works. Okay. My last interview was 3 weeks ago, and recruiter gives me vague updates such as, I'll update you when I speak with the team. Is that a good sign? Am I still being considered? It sounds like you're still being considered, but we're just going to have to wait and see, obviously, with the freeze and everything that's going on. After team match, what's the next step? Is there still hiring committee? Can you get a positive team match and committee says no? You should know where you're at. There should be no ambiguity here. Your recruiter should have told you whether you went to HC first and got approved and then went to team match. So, but the answer is yes. After team match, if you haven't gone to hiring committee, can you go to hiring committee and still get rejected? Absolutely, you can. Got selected for an L3 role at Google and got the congratulations and compensation mail from my recruiter, but have not received the offer till date. Is there anything I should worry about? Wow. Definitely follow up immediately. find out what's going on. I mean, this sounds like you should have received this offer before the hiring freeze, and this is really bad on their end. Please follow up with them or anybody on the team, the hiring manager, anybody, because I'm concerned that their lack of urgency that you could be impacted. So please follow up and come back and let us know what happens. CA TPM role in Android. 2 weeks after interview loop, hiring manager has reached out and said he has his fingers crossed for success. Does this indicate good feedback from the loop? CA TPM L6 L7 anchors. It sounds positive. I'm going to have you come back. I know we're kind of far behind, but when we talk about California, remember there's really 2 major markets that they hire for, which is the Bay Area and LA. They're different markets. They pay differently, and they also do hire in San Diego as well. So please let me know the market, and please let me know between 6 or 7, what do you think is your preferred or most likely level? I got HC approval right as the hiring freeze started for L4 UX PgM role Bay Area for YouTube trust and safety. Do you think this is a critical role, and do you have any insights on an anchor? So I do think that trust and safety is absolutely a critical area, especially for YouTube because of all the bad press and some of the stuff that goes on, and even I get a lot of that stuff on my YouTube channel. So I think it's really important. L4 program managers in the Bay, you're going to end up making about 260 to 270 in year 1, give or take. Okay, so I would be anchoring into the 320s, maybe low 330s. As per the recruiter, you've cleared the 3rd round, but you have not received the offer. Is there a possibility of getting an offer in India for a cloud migration consultant role? So I still think the cloud will be prioritized, but we're just going to have to wait and see because we don't know. You are welcome. Hi. Hi, Jeff. Do you think this freeze or slowdown will affect TSS role in GCP? Again, I'm going to prioritize GCP, and I'm just going to say I don't know for sure, but I think GCP will have some priorities. Thank you so much for all the content. You didn't get the job at Google, but I got your rejection after the rounds of on-sites. Thank you for preparing me. Absolutely. Again, I like looking and reflecting on this stuff with positivity, right? And I think people know my content pretty well. I try to reflect positively, and I'm in this with you guys. And again, I know that this is just a straight rejection, but like, as we look at the freeze, I mean, I'm really looking at my business and thinking, okay, like, did I niche down too much? Like, what did I do? How can I problem solve? And I'm trying to look at everything as an opportunity I have 2 courses that I'm working on. I'm working on a completely new business model as well. And it's just, we got to take the positives. So Mohammed, I appreciate that you're looking at the positives of how you did in the interview and take that forward. It will be massively impactful in future interviews. How much time does it take to get an answer after the phone interview? Was it a good idea to ask for another one before the feedback since you had doubts? Don't ask for another one before the feedback. Typically a week. If you haven't heard back in 5 business days, follow up. Would the Google Jobs portal be a good indicator of the impact of the freeze on roles? I noticed the total count on roles went down by about 50-ish. Oh my goodness, over the last 2 hours. Interesting. I think it could be some indication. Yeah, so if you were looking at a specific type of role and all of a sudden it disappeared, that could be a good indication. Absolutely. We want to track everything as a group, as a community. That's what we're here. This is a community platform. So any data we have, we want to be looking at it all. And that's a great data point. Thank you so much. So summary in L3 is that we can receive our positive feedback from one on-site from recruiter, but team matching and HC is put on pause. That's correct. And I think that for L3 roles, these will be deprioritized a little bit. Again, that's all the messaging I'm hearing. So it's based on a little bit of data. But to date, we don't have all the data, but I think L3s overall will be deprioritized. So the likely path is that I don't see them moving forward with L3s for the most part, at least until Q4, maybe next year. Yes, I received a written offer the day before the freeze was announced at G. Received confirmation about my position today. Recruiter said you can re-sign now, joining next month. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. Good news. Congrats. Any tips on companies that train for TPM technical side interview for Google and Amazon, such as system design? I don't have a specific recommendation on system design. I mean, there's a lot of platforms out there, so let's talk about it. Just because, I'll tell you right now, just because I worked at Google, it did not make me good at interview coaching. What made me good at interview coaching is repeating it now thousands of times. That's what made me good. So if you do go to one of these other platforms that offer coaches, pick the coach that has the most reviews, the one that appears to have done it the most. Those are the people I would trust the most. For system design, I still think we can follow similar to a CFAS model. We're going to clarify our framework is more about those design components. And then we're going to make some assumptions with whatever component we decide to start with. And then we're going to drill into solving. And then at the end, we're going to check in. So very similar to CFAS. The only reason I don't coach on system design is just because I coach on solution design, but system design, I might miss something technically. And that's why I don't want to do it. Hi, Jeff. I'm also in freeze mode limbo after passing on-site, starting team match and before hiring committee. Is it appropriate to follow up with my recruiter weekly for updates? Yeah, I think we'll just default to weekly or bi-weekly, but the best thing you can do is just ask your recruiter, how often can I check in with you? Because then you guys will, whoever your recruiter is, you'll have good alignment. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for your amazing content. You're a gem. Okay, after weeks of waiting, we finally got on-site interviews for TPM NYC today. Just wanted to share this data point. Yeah, we're absolutely seeing interviews still being conducted. Remember, half hour before, get to that meditative calm state, shut down your brain. All the data in science shows that our brain is very, very good in short stints. Up to an hour is typically the max that we should be working on anything at one given time. Sometimes we're in back-to-back interviews, but shut down your brain for a minimum of a half an hour before that first interview. Good luck. Want to say congrats to Yash above as a current hopeful, and comment on those interviewing Apple EPM. As a former EPM, I find the process to be less formulaic than other companies, though I found being honest about your experience, it will be a refreshing thing. Thanks, Jeff, for all your videos. Thanks, Liz, so much. That's amazing. Thank you so much for bringing in that data point. Really, really helpful. I have seen also that Apple has been less formulaic, and it kind of does seem pretty similar to Google, because it's like, it isn't really formulaic. It's like you might get a lot of open-ended, you might get a lot of behavioral, it might be more conversational. So thanks, Liz, really, really helpful. Hi, Jeff, I interviewed for Google 4 years ago for an interaction designer, got the case study, and you were rejected. 2 years later, a recruiter contacted me to apply to UX research. I didn't act on it. I'm now applying to UX research. Will the past interactions affect my application? Absolutely not. If you pass on the opportunity at that time, that's your personal decision to do that. So the other thing I'm going to say is UX is super, super hot. Okay. UX research, UX design, UX program managers, even program management's a little bit more rigid in terms of salary, but those jobs are compensating really, really well right now. Huge uptick in UX salaries. So I'd say absolutely get after it. The past interview feedback will be reviewed, but don't worry about not responding the last time around. How would you define L6 versus L7 at Google? What's the big differentiator? I think there's almost no difference, in my opinion. It's just one is a little bit more senior, one might lean a little bit more towards the leadership side of things, but both are very high level, very strategic, in my opinion. Is Google in a hiring freeze for the year? I mean, I really think yes. I mean, I think to a certain extent, a number of positions will be frozen for the rest of this year. Is it a full-on freeze for the rest of the year? No. I'm wrapping up interviews at Google TPM in DC area. Does the freeze impact the decision of HC or simply my ability to receive an official offer? HC is, for the most part, not being conducted right now, but we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. So they're really freezing the end of the process. HC, offer review, team match, and then anybody in the negotiation phase. That's been frozen. I think we're going to see some of that releasing as soon as today. And if anybody, again, in this community is experiencing that, please let us know. But I think we'll see some of that releasing today. Hopefully. We're all hoping. I've heard that once you're in Google, it's easier to move around to different teams. Is that true? If I got hired and then cut due to the economy, would it be easier to find another role? Maybe. And definitely moving around internally is easier. Now, it depends, right? Like if you're going from like one recruiter role to another recruiter role, or one program manager role to another program manager role, it's pretty easy. If you're going from program to product, you're gonna have to do that full slate of interviews. So it is easier to move around in a like or similar role. If you're talking about a different role, you're gonna have to do the full slate of interviews. I've been facing interviews for ML positions for quite a while now. I keep getting asked coding an algorithm-based question, which honestly, I don't think they have any real-life applications. So a lot of what happens in the interviews is not real life, okay? And so this is just something that now you know, if you're being asked these questions and you don't think they apply, it's part of the process. So I would just strongly encourage you to fight that need to kind of push back on that and just say, okay, it's part of the process. I have to do it. Maybe it's some foundational, fundamental stuff that I don't want to learn. But if it's been consistently a part of the process, it probably means that you're just going to have to deal with it. And I know that that's not a great answer. A lot of the stuff in interviews isn't really natural and doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just the model that they use. So we gotta try and navigate within the model. I'm currently wrapping up. Okay, so we answered that one. Program manager, enterprise, threat management role. Is a CS degree experience needed? Should someone with a mid-level physical security management experience apply with a referral? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think enterprise threat management would require a CS degree at all. Some program managers grew up in Edge and they really liked program management. Some TPMs grew up with CS degrees, but not all of them. Okay, so it sounds like a good fit. What would you recommend as an anchor for a senior UX writer, content strategist, L5 most likely? You've seen a minimum base salary for $152K in Colorado. Should I add for the Bay? Yeah, so like typically Colorado, we're going to add at least 10 to 12% for the Bay, but that's the base salary. That's not total comp. So if I'm looking senior UX writer, L5, I mean, I think that you should be making probably into the low threes, like around 310, 320, maybe a little bit more. I would be anchoring in anywhere 360, 370, up into the 380s or 390s if you want. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, thank you, Liz, so much for that feedback. Really, really appreciate it. I have an L5 AWS offer, taking a trip between last day at my current company and joining date of Amazon. Do you suggest prepone my joining and let go of the trip, such adverse circumstances in the market? This is a huge personal decision. I think if you've already set that start date, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. Again, I don't want to be the ultimate decision maker here. You do whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. But if you have the offer confirmed, you have the job, you have a start date, I say take the trip. But again, I'll ultimately default for you to make that decision, of course. It's been 2 weeks today since my virtual on-site interview with Google, and you haven't heard anything regarding feedback. How long does it take to get feedback? If you've not heard back in 5 business days, follow up. So follow up right now. What can we anchor for program manager taxonomy for L6 in Austin? Okay, so the taxonomy thing doesn't really matter. We're just looking program manager, L6 Austin, L6 Austin. I would be anchoring. So L6 Austin program manager is probably going to make in the mid to high threes, potentially up to about 4. So I would be anchoring probably somewhere in the mid 4s or higher if you want. SDE offer L3 with Google Ads joining in early September. Is there any chance they can rescind the offer? Should I look for backup? I mean, I just don't think so. I don't believe that Google is willing to face the repercussions of rescinding offers. It's really bad, and it's really just not a practice that most companies are willing to take on. I really think you're fine. You can go and get a backup if you want, but I really wouldn't worry about it. I just think from a press and branding perspective, it just would look really bad on them, and they have enough issues to deal with other things that are going on, all the scrutiny into their business. So I would be very surprised if your offer got rescinded. Hi Jeff, my recruiter said that they're waiting for comprehensive review from the team. So is this a script to delay giving a definitive answer because of the freeze? They should be giving you a more specific script. So maybe that's a part of it, potentially. Sorry, I think I got a hair back there. After the phone screen for a TPM position, got a higher recommendation, but down leveled from 6 to 5. Would it go to L6 based on onsite? Higher recommendation. Well, I can't say for sure. I mean, if they're saying that you're being recommended at a 5, they'd probably go and they'd probably be looking to assess you at a 5 in the onsite stage. Hi, Jeff. Have heard that there is a freeze at HP2. However, there have been some jobs posted. What does this mean? I mean, ideally, not ideally, but hopefully those jobs are the prioritized jobs. It's really hard to tell what the heck is going on because there's still jobs posted. We don't know if those jobs are priorities or non-priorities. So it's pretty tricky. So I can't say for sure. Interview for a data scientist generalist, so wasn't sure whether specific teams were interested in my resume. Okay, I think this was for the ads piece, right? By the way, finished a few weeks ago. When I reached out to my recruiter, received an email almost verbatim to Kyle. I think it will be verbatim. I think that they're being given exact scripts to send out to candidates. And it's surprising that they're not all sending the same exact messaging. For cloud solutions consultant, industry solutions cleared RRK, okay, and trending positive. HR said a few weeks ago, collecting holistic feedback from all rounds. Will it be prioritized post-freeze? Cannot say for sure. Just stay in touch with your recruiter. Okay, so there's definitely a hair back there, and I'm going to keep trying to pull at it because it's tickling me, so sorry for that. Hi, Jeff. Is it fine to ask recruiters to skip coding rounds and focus on rounds really relevant to the job? Context, I don't think leak code style questions have any real life value for ML engineers. I think maybe you asked the same question before. As a candidate, we don't dictate what happens in those interviews. And doing so and telling them what's relevant and what's not relevant will probably just immediately remove you from the process. And if I was your recruiter, that's what I would do. I agree with you. A lot of the interview stuff doesn't have real world application, but this is the way they test for candidates. So I want you to, and I'm pushing back because remember, I'm always wearing my coaching hat. I want you to reassess the way you're thinking about this and say, look, I can come in and have big impact, but I might need to give up something in the interviews in order to do that. That's my strong recommendation. By the way, you finished on site, reached out to your recruiter. Okay, thank you for that. Where should I anchor for an L6 UX program manager remote role in DC? DC is not one of the better paying markets, but I'd still be anchoring in the mid to high 4s. Would a recruiter role in Africa be a priority role? I don't know. Can't say for sure. Can same hiring manager send 2 candidates to hiring committee? A friend has been told that they are the HM's choice, and I have been told a statement of support has come for the same role for me. If they have multiple headcount, yes. Sending 2 people for 1 role to HC, never seen that. Okay. I finished my technical writer coding comprehensive interview last Friday. Your advice has been super helpful navigating the process. Just waiting to hear back from HC and pick your team. Okay, my best guess is that you're not going to hiring committee right now because they're not really meeting. Now you can come back and tell us if that's actually different, but best guess is that we're going to wait on the feedback and then see what happens with the freeze. But thank you so much for the positive feedback. All right, we're hitting the hour mark. I'm still 20 minutes behind, which again, if you've ever been on these lives, it's not too bad for me. I'm always playing catch up, and I will start to catch up. The questions slow down typically later after we hit that kind of hour to hour and a half mark. Practiceinterviews.com. I do interview coaching and negotiation coaching. Special offer today. Don't want you to miss out. $100 off if you use the code WIN, WIN. That will give you a $100 discount on our interview mastery course. That's till 11:59 Pacific time today. Hey, if you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you. What's the range for BD role L4 high cost of living area? Ryan, I'd probably want more data than that. High cost of living area, I mean, like LA, Boston, those are high cost of living areas, but they're not high cost of living like New York or Bay Area. So it's easier for me to kind of work off of a high cost of living area that's an actual area. That just makes me give you a better answer. But BD roles, I would hope that you would be making in the mid twos, at least in year one. It's been 4 weeks since on-site, and your recruiter said 3 interviewers are still drafting feedback. Is there a risk that they'll forget the details at this state? Yeah, Ryan, your recruiter is not doing their job. 3 weeks is an absolutely unacceptable amount of time to provide feedback. And will the feedback be hurt by their lag? Yeah, absolutely. If 3 interviewers aren't doing it, the VP would have already heard from me. I would have gone manager, director, VP. 3 weeks is totally unacceptable. I don't care what the scenario is. It's their job to provide feedback, and it's your recruiter's job to push no matter how much it annoys the leadership team. For CA TPM, role is listed as Bay, but could be remote San Diego, L7 preferred. I believe that is how the loop was set up, but good to know L6 if it comes back that way. So if you're going to get hired as a TPM L7 in the Bay, I mean, you can get into the 600s. So I would be anchoring up to 700 or more. Now for San Diego, you got to chop that by 10%. That's my recommendation. What does it look like to disclose a disability during the interview process? Do we need to specify what it is? Is my HM made aware? I worry about discrimination, so I never disclose. This is a question we get quite a bit. It's a very, very personal decision, and I understand how difficult that can be. The biggest thing is if you do disclose a disability, sometimes they can give you more time in the interview. They can give you something written. So if you think it's going to be to your advantage in the interview process, I want you to share. And just know that depending on the company, most companies are really focused in on inclusivity, and that includes disability. So it is a very, very personal decision. So I don't want to make that decision for you, but I think it can help. I don't know. I mean, I think basically you could, if you were interviewing at a couple companies, try it out. Try it with one and try it with another and see how they respond. But there can be some additional accommodations made in these cases. So something to consider for sure. Thanks for putting that out there. If G reached out for scheduling the interview, what are the chances they will not cancel it because of the freeze? Also, I don't want to rush to take the interview. How far away is ideal to push out the interview dates? Okay, so there's always a chance with this freeze because it's just been so funky, right? But you ask your recruiter, am I putting anything at risk by pushing it out 3 or 4 weeks? I always recommend that candidates put pressure on themselves to do it in at least a couple weeks so that you really force yourself to prep and practice. It's the best way to put urgency and stop the procrastination. I do like at least 2 weekends so you really can get after it if you want. Hi. Do you think the hiring freeze will end soon? I don't know. I actually think it'll be slower than people think. They're saying maybe another couple weeks. I think it'll probably take longer. Hi, Jeff. What is the compensation level range for a SWE and TSS? Okay, so I'm going to strongly push back on that. I don't have level, I don't have location, and they're two very, very different roles. Okay, so I don't mind providing the anchor information. I like to be helpful and a data source, but level, one role, one location is really will make me the most helpful for you. Hello, Jeff. I'd urge you to coach on system design because of your sheer lucidity in explanation and thought process. Maybe you can utilize this during the slowdown to plan and prepare. Please give it a thought. Thanks for that, Raul. I really, really appreciate that. So I have coached on system design before, but what I found was I want to make sure that my audience is getting the best result. I do think there are some foundational items on system design. I mean, for me, it's super, super interesting, right? It really, really stretches my skill set. I did have a coach out of Hong Kong last year who was handling the heavy technical coding and system design, but just pivoted the business this year to really streamline and just bring it down to me. But thank you for that. I genuinely appreciate being pushed and being coached as well. Thank you. I appreciate it. Did 9 interviews for 2 positions at G. The L5 SWE position said yes, and I was awaiting an offer when the hiring slowdown was announced. Can I wait it out? What's my anchor remote Tampa Bay? Okay, so I was waiting out the offer when hiring. So SWE Tampa Bay, I will be honest with the Tampa and the Tampa Bay area. I'm not as familiar with that, but I would imagine at an L5, I mean, I would be anchoring probably into the 4s and hoping for the mid to high 3s. And good luck. We'll just have to see how it goes. But an L5 probably will be safer than other roles. Does the internship experience count towards the experience? 2.5 years of co-op internship plus 3.5 years full-time. What should be the target level? Wondering if I can target L5. Probably won't get hired in an L5. You can target whatever level you like, but this would likely be more L3, L4, okay? Meta Recruiter says she needs competing offer or other documentation to go negotiate with compensation team for an IC program manager, remote, low cost of living operations role. How would you further respond to this recruiter? Oh my goodness. We could get into it. And we don't want to spend all day on this, but the reality is that I was in this scenario about a month ago. You just need to be the toughest negotiator of all time. Push back, push back, push back, push back. Find any data points you can out there. This is their messaging now. They don't want to move forward or give you any more without data, and these offers are terrible. Like these initial meta offers, they are going to get crushed because their baseline offers, they're really bad. And I'm sure that's what you're experiencing now. This offer is probably terrible, considering it's meta, right? So this is a super, super tricky scenario. With my client, we just battled, pushed, and this was a back and forth for like 3 weeks. It was painful for them and painful for me. And ultimately, we were able to move the comp up, I don't know, like 20 or 30K a year, but it was a tremendous battle. So you're in for it. It's just going to take a lot of pushback because they are being really rigid. And I think the organization is really putting themselves in a tough spot by not negotiating at all because their offers are so low. Just my 2 cents. Sorry, that's the best I can do, but thanks for the question. So Jeff, you can confirm if compensation is 3 or 4 data points. Okay, so that's correct. It's 3 or 4. It's a base and bonus, okay? Base, bonus, and equity at Google, they're all guaranteed. Sign on is a maybe. Is it likely? Sure, you might get it. Where should I anchor for an L3, L4 UXR position in the Bay? Also, I'd like to work remotely. Okay, so Aubrey, you're not going to bring up the remote work until they want to hire you. L3, L4 UX research, I mean, these positions pay pretty well. You know, L3 should be into the low 2s, like 220, 230. As you get up to an L4, 270, 280 with a really good negotiation in year one. So you should be anchoring in the high twos for L3 into the threes for L4, but don't bring up remote until they want to hire you. Your likelihood that you'll get remote when they want to hire you is much, much higher. What can I anchor? L5 TPM DC area. I'd be anchoring into the fours. Thanks for the good job. You rock. Thanks, Ricardo. After 3 on-site interview for TSE, July 8th to July 11th, the recruiter contacted August 1st and told me the position is no longer available and they're considering me for a different position. Is that normal? They also asked me to take an additional interview regarding system design. I mean, I'm glad that they're trying to find you something else. Yeah, it's normal if that role disappears and your interview feedback was good. And it sounds like you have a good proactive recruiter as well. So this sounds positive. I know it's a bummer that that position went away. Sounds like if they're bringing in system design, they might be looking at you for a slightly more technical role. Good luck. I'm in the negotiating stage for a DS firm. In light of the Google freeze, should I finalize and take the other offer? You mentioned rescinding after accepting, and I'm worried it might harm your reputation. Totally. You are going to burn a bridge and hurt your reputation a little bit. So I do recommend signing the offer, pushing out your start date as far as possible. If you have a Google offer or other offers you may want to consider in the future. Are you going to hurt your reputation? Sure. Are you going to burn a bridge? Absolutely. But is it really, in the grand scheme of things, really going to hurt you that much? Probably not. Hi, Jeff. What should I anchor? GCP L5 Program Manager Sunnyvale position. Okay, so the position is not as important. Also, how soon can I get an appointment if I get an indication about offer team match is done? So just kind of a note to everybody, like, just if you can't find a time that works for you, I can be pretty flexible with my schedule. My schedule is slower than it normally is. Usually there was about a 7 to 10 day waiting period. That doesn't exist anymore, right? Because of all the freezing, and this isn't just at Google, but it's across the board. So I'm pretty much more available. If you ever have an urgent need, you can always message me on LinkedIn, message me, put something out in the Slack group. I don't do DMs on the Slack group, email me directly, etc. Thanks for that. But it's really about doing no numbers and getting in front of me to really work through those numbers. Oh, and the anchor, L5 PgM Sunnyvale. We're trying to get you into the threes, so usually somewhere in that 370, 380 plus mark. And that's what I tell all my clients. I'm not valuable to you. The anchors, we can throw these anchors out all day long. That's where I don't provide value on the negotiation side. I provide value on the scripting, bringing in massive amounts of patience, and then knowing all the little push points to drive those offers up. Good luck. Hey, Jeff, is it okay to accept L3 at 3 years of experience? Recruiter said the ratings for L3 and pushing HC for L4 can put the application for hold. 3 years as an L3 is totally reasonable and acceptable. That's not a big deal at all. What I find oftentimes is that people forego a lower level when if they had just taken that level at the time, they would have gotten to that next level quicker. So, and I think, people know my story. I came into Google as an L4. Now, was that the right level? I was probably borderline 4 or 5, but for years of experience in the role, if I'm being honest, I was probably a 4. So sometimes that can be tough, but we just take it and we move forward. That's my recommendation. Sorry, no worries. L3, L4 BD role in Bay. So range. So for an L3, again, 220, 230 for an L3, and then B for L4, I would hope 260, 270 plus in year one. BD roles pay differently depending on the role. So it would really be based on the role and the incentives, etc. SWE, I think that's a SWE 3. I don't know what that is. Google's role minimum qualification, 2 years of experience with software development. You have more than 1 year. It's totally fine. Let's see. but I fail other qualifications. Should I apply for the role? Any chance that they'll call me for an interview? Always. Remember that years of experience is a recommendation. It's a suggestion. It's not a die hard, like they're not going to not call you if everything else matches. Okay, so years of experience is typically a recommendation. The freeze is still going on and we're still learning day to day. Yeah, so we don't really have any updates. Nobody's come in today and said that their offer as of today was pushed through, even though I've heard a couple of indications of that. Most people are still on hold. Received the initial offer for CS2 with Amazon. However, I'm currently waiting on the recruiter for an exception case, as my exception was more than their range. Any idea on how long that would take? Usually with exception cases, it's typically a while. It's usually maybe like a week or two. Sometimes it can move faster, sometimes it could be slower, but usually on an exception, Amazon usually takes about a week plus. Hey Jeff, today should mark the end of the hiring freeze. Do you think we'll get an official announcement from Google on how they're moving forward with hiring for the rest of 2022? I do not think that you will get an official announcement. I don't think that they're going to officially announce updates in their hiring. I think they officially needed to announce the freeze, but regular updates, I would not expect it. And they're not ready to move forward. That's every internal indication is that they're not moving forward right now. So they're still prioritizing. It is not a surprise that they couldn't get an entire global organization to agree on the priorities in 2 weeks. I think this was pretty much a 100% given that it was going to take at least a month, maybe longer. So we'll continue to check it. Hey Jeff, I meant to ask, is the level range for is the level/range the same for TSS and SWE? Looking for a range of TSS Canada Waterloo L4 L5. So they're not, the ranges are not the same. SWEs will make more than TSSs, and I strongly encourage that for Waterloo, that you're just looking at what an L4 L5 makes as a SWE and timesing that times 0.75, 0.8, and that should be a pretty accurate reflection of what you would earn in that role. So obviously if you go in, you're going to anchor more at what a SWE is making in that role. What should be the salary range for SAP App Engineer Advanced Business Applications? Can't tell you that one. So again, same formula. What we want to be doing is we really want to use levels.fyi and utilize software engineers. Why? Because that is by far the biggest data point. And then when we look at these other roles, we want to times it times a percentage. Non-tech, it's about 70%. For something more technical like this could be a 90%. It could be closer to what a SWE would pay, but we're not going to have all the niche down data. The one data piece we do have is software engineers, so use that as your baseline. What range should I be looking at? Strategic partner L5 role in LA. You'd want to make into the low threes in year one, 310 to 320. So you'd be anchoring in the mid to high threes. Thanks for the super helpful coaching session for non-tech. Absolutely. Does 20% bonus definitely mean level 6 or level 5? The total comp she suggested is below level 7 times. The total comp she suggested is below 0.7 times L6 for a SWE. Yeah, absolutely. The comp she suggested. So that means that, it was in the screening interview. Yeah, remember, that's going to be their baseline offer. It's going to be super, super low. 20% always means 6 at Google. Okay. But yeah, that's just going to be their low end of that's going to be the really, really low end of the band. So chances are there's lots of room to grow. Thanks so much for subscribing. Hey, if you like what we're doing today, smash that like button and please subscribe. I applied for an industry manager role at G and got a rejection email today that they will not, I think that's not move forward with my application. My skills are really suited to work up in this wider team. What would be a good follow-up? Should I connect on LinkedIn? It's an auto-generated email, but there is a name at the end of the email. Yeah, I think it's fine to follow up and show that you're still interested, but you applied. Oh, it's an application. You can try. It never hurts to try following up. I'm never against that. So if they gave you a name, try to follow up. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your insights on this. Any advice on a base range plus sign-on range for a cloud support engineer 2 in Canada? Cloud support engineer 2, CSE 2 is probably a 5. So I don't really break it down. In Canada, fortunately, it's kind of a big market where they hire in Toronto and Waterloo and Vancouver. And so what's the market? Okay, perfect. Thanks for the range info. My recruiter said my anchor was higher than the position salary and wants to speak tomorrow. Any tips for how to navigate what to expect? Yes, much as they push back, what's a real number? What's a more realistic number? Thank you so much. I'd really appreciate if you'd advocate for me and take my expectations back to the comp team. You notice my softening of tone. It's gratitude. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's their job to advocate for you. So if they're pushing back against this number, simply just kind of push back and say, look, I'm trying to get this number and that's my expectation. And so if they say, hey, you're not going to accept the role if you get this number, I'd really appreciate if you take my expectation back to the comp team. So that my expectation piece is really critical. But if they're hopping on a phone call with you, stay strong. That's the biggest component of building an anchor, but soft tone, gratitude, empathy, etc. A company I interviewed at loved my interview and did several team match meetings, but I never heard back. It's been 1.5 months, not sure what I should be doing. Does it mean I should consider other roles? Well, whatever that organization was, if that's Google or anybody else, like you need to follow up and get some closure. Okay, so that's my biggest recommendation. How does hiring freeze or slowdown typically affect a recruiter's day-to-day work? Less workload until hiring resumes, or are they asked to focus in on other things? I think that they should be like getting super organized if they're not already, which clearly we all know that's pretty true, pretty much the case. So hopefully they're getting organized, but yeah, it feels like they should have more time. Are they being given actual specific project work? Probably not. Are there projects they could be working on? Absolutely. So they're probably not given a ton of direction, but I can't say for sure. And do you have any specific tips that we can avoid getting down level during the Google hiring process? No. I mean, you just got to crush the interviews, right? And show that you're at the level that they want to hire you at. But getting down level is just very common. And I really encourage and emphasize and want people to focus in on comp, not level. Because, again, and this is not a comment for you personally, but this is just a comment in general. Typically, level and title is ego, and comp is what we care about. Now, if you're being significantly down leveled from where you're at, that's a totally different scenario, but level is not really that important as long as we're getting compensated appropriately. Jeff, your wealth of experience in coaching for salary negotiation, good anchor, L4, CE, Infomod, and India. Yeah, so I'm not as familiar. I do get negotiation clients in India, but it's not a lot. So I have not negotiated a CE role in India, but here's what I can say. CE roles are paying pretty close to SWEs. So look at what L4 SWEs are earning. Take the last 10 SWEs that were hired in India. Look at the average of that, and it's going to be like 0.9. It's going to be like 90%. So it's going to be pretty close to what they're earning. That's what you should expect. So you want to anchor 20 to 30% higher than that. Joined a new company as a program manager, BI, planning to try seriously for Google in 1 year. How to get noticed by Google recruiters. Well, just make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. And so as you're learning new skills and developing and growing, just make sure that LinkedIn profile is crispy clean. That's the best way to get noticed. It's you being proactive and then hoping that they reach out, and then, after a year, maybe work on more of a networking strategy, a giving first model. Finished onsite and got message on reprioritization. How often should I touch base with the recruiter? Yeah, so this is, you want to work on that cadence with them, but I would say probably something like once a week would be a great time to touch base. A good video about down level is don't get down leveled from A Life Engineered on YouTube. Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I love to see what they say. It's sometimes can feel a little bit outside of our control. I don't think that's 100% inside of our control, but I'm really super interested to check that out. Thank you. I'll check it out, and everybody else should as well. Curious to hear your thoughts on the hiring process for Google versus Amazon. Google's open-ended and behavioral, and Amazon's 100% behavioral. Outside of an additional niche down interview that might be technical or whatever, there's a lot of bad data on how Amazon interviews. They're a behavioral shop. They ask behavioral questions. You have to come in and crush it and have 20 to 25 unique examples, and they want those examples to be based off the last 2 to 3 years, ideally 2 years. So Google will do much more challenging from a problem-solving, open-ended perspective. Do we have a hard date when G will be unfrozen? We do not. We do not have that data point. We do not know at this point. Is the hiring freeze also affecting GCP roles? I don't know the L4 PM GCP anchor. So again, software engineering, what is that earning in your market? And then take a percentage of that. PM, if we're talking product management, that should be the same as software engineers. If we're talking program management, that's going to be more of a 0.7, 0.8. But the hiring freeze is affecting all roles. Jeff, one final question. If they don't agree with the exception case for my salary exception, they're already giving me the max range. Is there a chance to rescind the offer in that case, or they'll only go up to the max? Yeah, they'll just go up to the max. Don't worry about them rescinding. Google Operations Center reached out to me last year, and I let the opportunity go. Would it be easier to join Google from GOC? I rejected because they wanted me to change work location. I just want you to be open-minded. It's got to make sense for you, for your family, anybody else who's going to be impacted. But, you know, again, in yesterday's video, and if you haven't watched it, check it out. I mean, I left my girlfriend, now wife at the time, in San Diego to move up to the Bay. I flew back every single weekend. And yeah, did I have the ideal scenario of being a current renter, having no kids and no pets? Yeah, I did. I had a really, really good setup, but I still had to make a sacrifice. And I would just, again, this is just an overall impression. Like, we make sacrifices for what we see as great long-term opportunities. I know that's pretty high level, but I hope it helps. Okay. We're at the 128 mark, so pretty short live today. I think the slowdown is maybe slowing me down a little bit. I will come in and answer any last minute questions, but I'm going to go into my close now. Any additional questions I see, a couple have just come in, I'll answer those after the close. So my name is Jeff H. Sipe. PracticeInterviews.com is my business. I do interview coaching and negotiation coaching. WIN. If you use the code WIN just today, WIN, great opportunity to get $100 off the interview mastery course till 11:59 Pacific time. If you like what we did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I go live every single Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, and new content videos every other Tuesday. Thanks so much. I'm going to answer these last questions and then hop off. G mentioned 2 weeks hiring freeze in an official statement, hoping they'll open the floodgates tomorrow, and fingers crossed for my HR. They're not going to do that. The reprioritization is going to take additional weeks. I don't believe there's a high likelihood, but there is some whisperings of layoffs. I can't say for sure. I recently went through interview loop for a CE role, and your videos were extremely helpful. Waiting on a decision. Hopefully good news to share soon. Thank you for that. Thanks a lot. Amazing insights. Liked and subscribed. Wish I'd reached out to you at the beginning of this. Definitely would reach out in the future. Thank you for that. Jeff, if I receive an offer and decide to pass, does Google do something similar to some tech companies where they keep the offer open for a certain amount of time to allow you to reuse for fast tracking process for people ops role? Yep, absolutely. It should stay open for about a year where you could revisit it. Now it needs to be the perfect storm where they have an opening, they're still interested, etc. But usually that can be repurposed within 1 year or less. What are the best orgs to look for contract opportunities? Any of the big tech companies. You get that brand on your resume, you'll learn a ton. So any big tech. Can you please share or let me know where to get your email? My previous question, other than LinkedIn and Slack, I would like to have email in my notes as needed for future. Okay, so I'm happy it's jeff@practiceinterviews.com, but sometimes I get people making big requests through email, and unfortunately, I just don't have the bandwidth to answer all questions via email. Okay, so I like the Slack group because the Slack community holds each other up. They can answer some very general questions for you. So Slack tends to be the better mode. Thank you so much, Jeff. Your video content is amazing. Going through Google and Amazon interviews right now and utilizing your tips. Thank you. Recruiters often ask for salary range right in the first call. Should I avoid that? If no, what's a good response? How do you anchor ML role? Okay, close to 3 years of experience. So we just don't talk about comp. What are your salary expectations? I'd like to learn more about the position and meet the team before talking about compensation. Yeah, but you know your comp range. Until level is determined and I've had a chance to meet the team, I prefer not to discuss comp. And no matter how much they push, I would just push back, just be very gracious and kind. Don't give any numbers. We don't have a lot of things confirmed that we need confirmed to determine how much we should be paid. Jeff, I love your content. Team matching phase, should I stop weekly check-in with your recruiter? Till they tell you no, I wouldn't, but you can always ask, can I check in weekly, bi-weekly? What do you prefer? So that always builds a good relationship. Thank you. Good vibes. Yeah. Thanks so much, Liz. Thanks so much for that feedback on the EPM role at Apple. Super, super helpful. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll be back next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Have a great day. And again, if you want to get that course, special offer, $100 off, WIN, WIN, you get $100 off just today.